Good morning, good morning, good morning, my muffin to say folks. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing awesome. You know what? This isn't gonna work. I gotta fix that. Hold on. There we go. All better. Good morning, my muffin to say friends and family. It is awesome to see you. I see Michael is up and roaming the boundaries of the interweb, already talking about how someone missed a month. I know exactly who that someone might be. I would be shocked, but eventually the free ride has to end, right? I mean, can't go on forever, can it? Who knows? Well, it isn't a fantastic Thursday, I think it is. Yep, it is Thursday. Today's actually my birthday. So it seems like it might be a fun day to stream. Maybe not. We'll see. But at least on my birthday, I know I'm going to get to go out to dinner. I think my daughter might actually be coming up today to stop by. Not because she wants to see me on my birthday. No, that's not what's going on. It's because she's getting married on Sunday, and she has to pick up her dress, which I believe is still here. So my daughter is probably going to be stopping up today, which means, I don't know, maybe she'll be able to go out to dinner with me. That would be kind of fun. I do miss my baby girl, and, well, she's getting married on Sunday, so she's not going to be my baby girl anymore, I guess. But at least she found a good one. She needs that final check. Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe, but it is what it is. We're going to have some fun today because I have a topic that I find fascinating. And I wonder, I don't know, I definitely don't think it's a good thing. But we're going to find out what you guys think, hopefully. The topic today is, so this is news. And what that refers to is an interesting thing that I've run into because, when I'm kind of looking for or surfing for news, I will just go on here and I'll go to the, to the Google machine, right? And I've noticed that the Google machine here is which always aggregated news that was at least interesting for me. I like news about cars, tech, stuff like that, right? Like everybody. And of course, it gives you political news in there as well. That always pops in there. But the news that I like, it will aggregate. And I can kind of adjust it to give me what I want. If it sends me stupid things, I can say, hey, stop showing me this or that. So it's always been at least a reasonable location for me to catch up on, football scores, baseball scores. What's going, are there any interesting new cars coming out or whatever? It's always been a cool place to get information like that. However, I've noticed in the last few months that news, at least according to the Google box, is a lot different than what it used to be. What do I mean by that? Well, let's start with major news organizations first, because I think that they're the ones that caused this problem. And they're the ones that deserve the shame. Okay? I recently opened multiple different articles from major media organizations like the New York Times, for example, which you would think would at least have legitimate reporters and be semi-trustworthy, I suppose you could say. And these articles had hyperbolic titles like, Internet explodes with blah, 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 or something like that, right? Okay. Whatever the blah, blah, blah was, it was interesting. I wanted to know what the article was about. So you go into the article, and it's literally, I'm not kidding, it's literally an aggregate of tweets that they took off of X and put in an article. And it's almost always tweets taken off of X and put in an article to further a narrative. Now, this is the New York Times, mind you. This is supposed to be a legitimate news organization posting news articles that are platforming idiots on X typing opinions. And the worst part is, in these opinions, I saw words like Nazi, what are some other ones? Fascist, stuff like that. So obviously words that are meant to evoke anger or hatred or something like that in another group. How is this responsible reporting by the New York Times to platform people who would write something like that? You know what I mean? How is that even remotely responsible reporting? And at what point did some person on Twitter's texts become news? Because this is the New York Times we're talking about here. The New York Times. Seriously. That's not news. A bunch of unknown nobodies on Twitter's opinion is not news. It's not even what people think. Because Twitter, I'm not sure you can consider those people sometimes. So, it's irresponsible. It's not reporting. It's not news. And it's not helpful for society. And yet, when I open up the Google machine and I'm looking at news, 40 to 50% of all the news that's aggregated on the Google box at this point is some jackbag on X's tweet. He's unknown. This guy's not getting paid by, any... Is that what independent news is for them? Really? Because I don't know who Joe74 is on X. Why the hell do I care what he has to say about my football team, about a car, or about freaking international news? Why? Why do I care what some jackbag on Twitter had to say? Why does Google think I care? It's hard enough. It's really, really hard to find truth today. It's practically impossible to find truth today. Because where are you going to look? Where are you going to look? You're going to go to Fox News? They're biased. You're going to go to CNN? Come on, man. CNN has made a living out of lying to us for years. MSNBC? No. Hell no. They've made a living out of lying to us too. But, you can't trust the New York Times, obviously, because they're aggregating articles that are written by some dude on X. They're aggregating tweets and calling it news. Come on. So, what are we doing? What are journalists doing in school? Are journalists just trained to pass a narrative and not report? Is that what's going on? Are these journalists trained to just pass on a narrative? Hey, my company thinks X person or this is the narrative, so that's what we're gonna tell you on the news. Because if that's true, that's not news. Oh. Lily says, I'm confused with the government shutdown. I keep seeing both sides. Huh. I got to be honest with you, Lily. I haven't paid any attention to that sort of national news. Excuse me. Or the government shutdown. Because basically what happens is the side that's shutting down the government, which usually it's basically both sides, but they just argue that people are going to lose money and they're going to have trouble affording their Christmases because they're going to not get paid, and all these services are going to go unserved. And the reality of it is, because this has happened multiple times since I've been alive, I know I'm an old fart and all that stuff, but the reality is nothing happens. Nothing happens. They eventually figure it out, and all the people who didn't work during the government shutdown basically just get a free vacation because they all get paid. Do you think they don't get paid? When it's not a company giving them money, it's the government giving them your money. They get paid. They're all getting paid. Every one of them gets paid. In fact, I was in the military during government shutdown. I got paid. They're getting paid. So it's like, I don't know. Whatever. Do we really even need the government? Let's be honest. I'd be fine with my local police force and my local government. The federal government just takes money and sits in Washington and argues about things that barely affect you and I. And then they appoint these big giant conglomerates like the FDA and the, stuff like that to legislate rules that nobody voted for. I don't know. The federal government is a crock of shit. That's just my opinion, of course. But, at least with local government, I can go down there and I can get it. I can walk into that guy's office and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? I can make my opinion known. Try doing that with the federal government. That guy's too busy taking meetings with, the pharmaceutical companies. And how do I know that? Hey, you know what? I lived through COVID. That's how I know that. How do I know that that's what's going on? Because I lived through COVID. Have you heard about the flotilla? Do you have an opinion on it? I have not heard about the flotilla. But I am excited, Lily, because you are actually the second person ever who's communicated with me on the TikToks, and I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Lego Tech Mike says our friend's daughter works for the government, and she considered essential and has to do her job at the border. Mind you, she has to do it unpaid. Well, she has to do it unpaid until the thing is over, and then she'll get back pay. They always do. They always get back pay. They always get back pay. So you can look at that historically. That's not me making something up. It's actually true. So, yeah. They're not going to starve for Christmas or anything like that. But yeah, so how does aggregating tweets count as news? I truly, really want to know how aggregating tweets counts as news. Especially news from the New York Times. Because it's not news. Well, thank you, Lily. I appreciate that. Super cool. I'm mega pumped that I got somebody on TikTok to notice me. I probably don't look a lot like other people on TikTok, so I understand. I think I need to take on a more youthful look. Maybe. Something like this, If I look like this, I'd get a lot more action on TikTok, I think. I could probably deliver news that people would trust looking like this. Although my hair does keep flashing in a weird way that I don't really think I understand at all. It's, it's just doing its thing. I do see a lot of folks on YouTube who do the news look a lot like this, man. You can always trust a dude who looks like this that's giving you the news, right? You can always trust. Let's see. Lily says, how long can the government shutdown last? I don't know. I think the longest one that we've ever had was maybe 80 days or something like that. There's plenty of old people on TikTok, Michael says. I know. I'm just, I like to have fun with it because I don't really care. I don't feel old except for when I sit down in the car or when I stand up from a chair. Monica and I have a running joke now, actually. When we sit down anywhere and the sound goes, or the whole old person getting up and down sigh thing. Yeah. So the other day we went to Home Depot to pick up some stuff because I'm doing a little bit of plumbing work, which I should never do. But I'm picking up some stuff and doing a little plumbing work. And we're walking out, and we kind of have this light conversation with the guy who checked out at the same time, and we're walking out. And he gets in his car, which is closer to, to the door than ours, because I'm one of those. I park far away, try to, maintain the integrity of the skin of my automobile. So the guy gets in his car and drives away, and Monica turns to me and says, how old do you think that guy was? I'm like, yeah, I'm like mid-30s maybe. She says, well, he made those old man noises getting in his car. Yep, I know exactly what she means too, because I do it all the time. I make that old man noise when I'm sitting down, standing up, whatever it is, stretching. You know the noise I'm talking about. I know you do. It's a good noise, I think. But, Lily says that she was told government workers can't afford not to get paid. What happens then? Well, lots of people can't afford not to get paid, Lily. Teachers, government workers, policemen, that sort of stuff. But they'll get back pay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to think I'm insensitive to the government shutting down. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. And we all know somebody who works for the federal or local or central government. So I totally get it. But at the same time, if you've ever worked for the government, which I have, I was in the military, which is like working for the government, except for you do it, based on force, essentially. At least once you sign the paperwork. So in other words, here's how the military works. You voluntarily sign up to be forced to do whatever they tell you to do for however long your enlistment lasts. And some people actually re-enlist. I did once, at least. I was in for 6 years. What would have happened if somehow they stopped paying the military for a month? Well, we still would have probably went to the pub and drank every night. We still would have, done the things that we always do. And eventually we would have gotten back pay. And you just kind of make do. Like, put it this way. Government people can barely ever get fired, right? You have to really, really, really screw up to get fired from a job where they don't care about efficiency or performance. So they almost never get fired, right? So if the government goes on a strike like this, right, for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, it sucks because they might not get paid for a month or whatever. And that's hard, especially today when people don't have any backup savings. I get that. However, in the real world, good people who work hard and do good jobs get fired. And there is no paycheck coming. That's it. There's no safety net. You're going to get back pay when you get back. So I feel sorry for them. I do. But they're going to get paid every cent. And they're not going to have to make up the time that they didn't work because they were on whatever this government shutdown thing is. They're just going to sit at home. And then when they go back to work, Congress is going to meet and they're going to say, we need to pay these people. And then they're going to get paid even though they didn't work. That sounds like a pretty good deal. But that's coming from a guy who's been fired from 3 or 4 different places, where you just walk in on a Friday, you're having a good day, and they say, you don't work here anymore. You know, and there's nothing you can do. They're not going to send you a paycheck because they feel sorry for you or anything like that. Nope. You're just out. Bye-bye. So you got to, you know, in this world, you got to just make do. You got to hopefully plan for the worst and hope for the best. Put some money aside in case something like this happens. I mean, my son currently doesn't work, and it's by choice. He hated his job. He spent years working for this company, and he just squirreled money away and put it in the bank, and he's saving up for this, saving up for that. And one day, where he worked got bought out by another company, and his life got super miserable. He hates it. He hates it. And, you know, he stuck around and stuck around and stuck around until at some point he just walked into his boss and said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. and he strolled out of the office and never went back. And, you know, so he's been living off of the money that he put aside and saved. Now, if a 30-year-old Gen Zer can figure it out, then I'm pretty sure federal employees can, because believe me, he was not making good money when he was there. But somehow, he figured out how to buy all his video games, still buy a new cell phone, and save enough money so that he could just quit his job and say, I'm not doing this. So, well, Lily says, I saw on TikTok that Republicans in the House are going to get paid. Is that true? I don't know. But I guarantee you they don't just pay you based on your political affiliation. So it's not just Republicans who will get paid. If they put in a vote, people who work for the government will get paid. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle they're registered to vote on. That's not how it works. So, yeah, if somebody gets paid, they'll all get paid. And that's kind of the gist, because Lily asked a lot of good questions. But that's kind of the gist of where I'm coming from. What the hell's news? Where do you find accurate news? Who do you trust? Gosh, you know, I could say a lot of things on here, and I'm relatively knowledgeable about a lot of different things. I worked for the government. I was in the military. I understand how a lot of this stuff works. But I understand how a lot of this stuff works, but I'm not a news source, man. I'm not connected. And obviously, neither is the New York Times, because they consider news aggregating some dumbass's tweets on TikTok or on X. That's not news. That is not news. That will never be news. I don't know those people on TikTok. I don't have any reason to trust them. And when the New York Times is platforming those people and aggregating tweets off of X, you can't trust them either. How can you trust the New York Times anymore when they consider news to be a bunch of random tweets from X? It's just not. It's just not. You are so welcome, Lily. I do appreciate it. Most of my thoughts and opinions are essentially based on just having lived long enough to know better. Having seen, I mean, I've obviously seen government shutdowns, and I've seen all of this stuff. I've lived through them. Shockingly enough, most of the news of the day is meant to evoke an emotional reaction from somebody. And generally speaking, a lot of times the emotional reaction is based on the fact that, I don't know, people like to get emotional. They're not really that sure about the subject, so they just buy into whatever it is the news media is saying. And I'm not just, this is not being aggregated from one specific side or the other, because Fox News does it, and CNN does it, and MSNBC does it, and they're all pushing a totally different narrative, but they all do it. All their news is meant to just evoke an emotional response from you that theoretically makes you dislike what the other side is saying. You can't trust any news. Anything that you see on the news, well, usually the first thing you should always do is question it. And I always do. And I used to be able to go to the Google box and find 15 different articles on a topic and look it up and see what the facts are. But now Google thinks news is somebody's stupid tweet on X. Somebody I don't know. I have no reason to trust that person. So how are we supposed to find legit news? And please, 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 God, don't go to ChatGPT and expect that it's going to give you an answer that's good. Because no, that's definitely not how this works. ChatGPT gets its bad answers from the same people that are writing bad news articles and aggregating tweets off of X. Yep. I don't know where you get honest news. And this is why it is so important for people to just think for themselves, for people to ask questions, for people to use critical thought. I may not know what's going to happen in this situation or that situation or whatever, but I can think critically, like a scientist. Okay, if this is true, then this must be true. Like, test those theories. This is the kind of really simple, basic stuff that people tried to do during COVID and got, lambasted for it. Like just asking the question, well, if everybody has it and they're sick and they're dying, then why is the parking lot at the hospital always empty? You weren't allowed to ask questions like that. If you asked a question like that during COVID, you're going to get deplatformed. Period. You're getting deplatformed. Because critical thinking and asking questions was not allowed. And, I think it sucks that we live in that world. But we live in that world because of this. Everybody thinks they don't have to think critically about anything because they could just go on here and ask it. And as I've already said, well, ChatGPT isn't giving you honest, it's giving you information that it thinks is correct. And the worst part about ChatGPT is ChatGPT will learn what you want, and then it will just give you answers based on what it thinks is going to make you happy. So it's not even going to give you the news. It's going to give you the news it thinks you want to hear. Even if it's wrong, it doesn't care. ChatGPT has no social responsibility to give you correct news at all. I'll be asking ChatGPT for thumbnails and stuff, and it will change its answers based on what I say. So I'm like, okay, so why is this thumbnail not centered? There's all this extra space to the left, right? And I got it wrong. The extra space is always on the right on ChatGPT. So I said, can you please center this up? And so it goes through a little diatribe where it says, okay, so this isn't centered, and it gives me a full explanation of why it's not centered. But it's totally wrong, because it's saying it's not centered to the left instead of to the right, So it will just feed back information to make me happy. And then I'll go and say, well, wait a second, I messed that up. It's actually a lot of extra space on the right, so it needs to be centered. And then it'll go and do it And it will still be wrong. Every time. Because ChatGPT can't make images if you give it a specific dimension, like 1920 by 1080. ChatGPT can't make images that are centered once you give it once you give it the exact resolution that you want. So yeah, that's a thing. Oh, it's a genius. It's so smart. Smart things can make images that are centered. Believe me. I know. I'm not that smart. And I can create images that are centered. I don't know why ChatGPT can't do it. And by the way, if you ask ChatGPT for a 16 by 9 or a 1920 by 1080 image, you will not get that. You will not get even close to that. You get whatever it wants to give you, and it won't be centered either. So, is it really that smart? Are you really trusting ChatGPT to give you news and information? Because if you are, I'm really sorry. You should question everything. You should question everything. And at some point, I don't know if this happened before COVID or after COVID, but at some point, every single news organization went in the tank for some sponsor, whatever. I mean, the news business is super hard right now. Network news and national news and even national TV and everything. Other than like the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, most of these networks aren't making a whole heck of a lot of money from advertising revenue. So they pretty much just adopt the politics and opinions of the people that do supply the ad revenue, which is why we had such a pro-specific type of thinking during COVID, because every single sponsor of the major news media, of course, was Eli Whitney or one of the other drug companies, Pfizer, you know. So what? Do you really think that they're paying reporters for hard-hitting news that contradicts what the, you know, what their sponsors are promoting? No. But there's no integrity in that. I remember it used to be that you could count on the news giving you the facts of the case because they assumed that everyone was able to critically think through their personal opinion on the aggregation of those facts. But that's not how it works now. Now, they give you their opinion of what's going on because their opinion causes an emotional reaction from you, right? They want to cause an emotional reaction from you because that's what keeps people watching. If they just gave you the facts, you know, there's no emotion in facts. Well, unless, of course, you give the facts and then you tell somebody why they've been wrong for years. That's, you know, that causes an emotional reaction. But they don't actually want to hear the facts because, you know, they just don't. They just don't. Facts don't sell papers. Facts don't sell news broadcasts. Controversy and anger and emotional writing and emotional articles, they sell newspapers. So I don't know what they're teaching these journalists now in journalist school, because it certainly isn't to hunt down the story and just tell the facts. I think what they're actually doing is saying, here's the narrative. Hunt down facts that support our narrative. That's what's really going on now. Yeah. What a world that we live in. Clown world. Clown world. You know what I'm talking about, right? We live in the clown world. Yeah. Well, you know, I covered the topic that I wanted to cover today. I am really disappointed with Google and the way that it's aggregating news these days, because this is what somebody said on X is not news. I don't trust those people. And I've gotten to the point now where I don't really know who to trust. Who do you even turn to for legit news? Hey, if one of you guys knows who to turn to for legit news that's balanced and just gives me the facts, man, I'd love to hear about it. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Because I don't think they exist anymore. I don't think there's any integrity in journalism anymore. Yeah. I'm unhappy about it, but I just feel that way. I don't know why, but I just feel that way. But it's been great fun today. I had an awesome freaking time. I hope you did. I'm going to be doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays every single week. We're going to be coming and hanging out, talking about a different topic, having a little fun. We're going to start to add some new features in here. Give you guys the ability to change up what I'm wearing on my face. You know, call me a liar, whatever. We're gonna add some features in there. But you're gonna be able to do that through chat prompts and things like that. It's gonna be a lot of fun, I think. We'll see. So, love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. You know, it's been a good time. Take care, and I will see you on the Tuesday, I believe. Love ya.